Okay, Shalom. That is the greeting word of peace. Yasharallah. That is the nation of Israel, who are made up of so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians, by and large, scattered throughout the four corners of the earth. It is a Shabbat again, and we are back live. I want to start by giving, of course, all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashim Yahweh Shai. That is the name of the Heavenly Father, who the world calls God, in the name of his Son, who the world commonly knows as Jesus Christ. And we are back live for another edition of Way of the Saints. Way of the Saints. So this series that I have began through the Spirit over the last couple of months is for the purpose of raising up true Israelites to their proper state. Okay? It is for the purpose of teaching Israel how they should and should not behave on a day in and day out basis. That's what we're going to focus on. We're going to focus on learning how to move, all right, when we are outside of our, gatherings and things of that nature, like this one. And we also want to encourage a kind of Israelite, right, a certain particular kind, one who can adapt and appreciate the lessons and then actually take heed to them to join the community, which is Sanctuary of Saints, a community that is purposed to live a God-fearing life, okay, and to come together ultimately to create sustainable situations, especially as the society begins to deteriorate. So we want to mold and shape men and women of our nation to become virtuous, to become mature, and to ultimately cause others to do the same. That is the purpose of these edifications. It's also important to know why behavior occurs. Right? It's also important to know the source of behavior as well. That's what this particular addition to this series is about. We did, of course, the Way of Deceit Part 1 last week. If you haven't checked that out, you can still be edified today. I'm going to do a brief recap. Shabbat Shalom to the brother Will. I'm going to do a brief recap of last week's lesson before we continue. And of course, you can go back and listen to that edification there. Okay. So let's just start by defining the word deceit. This is the Way of Deceit, Part 2. Deceive is the action or practice of deceiving someone by concealing or misrepresenting the truth. A synonym of deceit would be deception. So when you think about the class, you should think about the definition that I've read. Okay, so we're talking about the action or practice, of deceiving someone by concealing or misrepresenting the truth. So I'm going to give a quick recap, if you will. Aaron, if you can get and read Revelation chapter 12 and verse 9.
God, it's the book of Revelation, chapter 12 and verse 9. And the great dragon was cast out, that old serpent called the devil and Satan, which deceiveth the whole world.
Which does what?
Deceiveth the whole world.
Which deceiveth the whole world. So it's important to know that Satan has been given a time and a season in which he's going to deceive the whole world. Okay. And that time has come upon us. And we understand, most of us who follow my teachings, you understand the context of the word world is important. And in context of this chapter, right, as well as other chapters as well, it is in direct reference to the nation of Israel. Okay? There's going to be, and there is, many of us who are deceived by Satan currently. He has the power to deceive those inside the knowledge of the truth and outside the knowledge of the truth. Those that we would deem wise, he can deceive them, as well as those who are ignorant to the knowledge of the truth. He is currently deceiving them. And there's a method that he uses in order to do so. Okay. And that method is through the lust of your flesh, the natural desires that we have been given by God as individuals. He utilizes those in order to cause you to serve him, right? Oftentimes unbeknownst to you. So with that being said, let's read 1 John 2 and 16.
Gone. It's the book of First John, chapter 2 and verse 16. It reads, "For all that is in the world, the lust of the flesh, and the lust of the eyes, and the pride of life, is not of the Father, but is of the world."
But is of what?
The world.
But it is of the world. Okay. So what we have to understand is these are the avenues that Satan takes to deceive. Right? He uses the lust of the world, right? The things that you care about most, the lust of the eyes, the things that you are interested in seeing every day, the pride of life, meaning who you feel to be and your level of importance. Okay? Pride develops over time through achievements and of yourself and others around you, things of that nature. He uses these things to deceive you. Okay, so it's extremely important then to be able to control your lust. The way that you are able to overcome the deception of Satan is to control your lust. You have to be in control of it. Lust, as I'm going to always continue to say, in and of itself is not sin. It is not a transgression. It's often spoke about in a negative light, but it is not a sin in and of itself. However, as the book of James tells us, that what happens is that you are drawn away by your lust. That's what happens. And that's where Satan comes in. Satan is the one that entices you to draw you away. And then when you're drawn away, that lust morphs into sin. All of a sudden, this strong desire as a man that you have for a woman, it goes south because you start having a strong desire for another man's woman. Okay? And then that's when it becomes a sin. That's when it becomes a problem, for example. And so this is what Satan uses. And so we covered that last week and we gave some biblical examples, of course. Okay. But let's get the book of 1 Corinthians, and you're going to read chapter 10, verse 18.
Gone. It's the book of First Corinthians, chapter 10 and verse 18. "Behold Israel after the flesh. Are not they which eat of the sacrifices partakers of the altar? What say I then? That the idol is anything, or that which is offered in sacrifice to idols is anything?"
Read.
Verse 20. "But I say that the things which the Gentiles sacrifice, They sacrifice to devils, and not to God. And I would not that ye should have fellowship with devils.
Read on.
Ye cannot drink the cup of the Lord and the cup of devils. Ye cannot be partakers of the Lord's table and of the table of devils.
And so we did a pretty thorough breakdown last week. And I'm not going to go over it again. You can go back to get the history lesson of exactly what that passage of scripture is referring to. But the point that I want to drive home is that the way that Satan deceives through your lust is to get you to believe that you can serve both him and the Most High. That is the main thing, especially for those of you all who are in the knowledge of the truth. The way that you serve Satan is by becoming a servant and a slave to your own lust. When you become a servant and a slave to your own lust, you by default are serving Satan. And we don't have this understanding. We don't have this understanding because we feel that it is us fulfilling our own desires. But you're fulfilling the desire of Satan, which is for you to serve and become a slave to that lust. By default, serving him. Okay? And we think that we can do both. We have many examples of this in scripture that we have gone through. And so I want to make us fully aware, especially those who are growing and maturing in the faith, that you are deceived easier than you think. A lot of us are walking around deceived. The Bible has a few words for this kind of person that is deceived, which is deaf, blind, dumb. Right? And these are words that when you speak them to somebody and you let them know that, they become offended. They're offended because they feel as if you are insulting their intelligence. Now, I don't mean that when I call you deaf, dumb, and blind. I don't mean to insult your intelligence. I don't think that you're stupid. I think that you are green to what's going on, if I could say it like that, right? I think you aren't hip to what's going on. That's what I mean by blind. Okay, that's what the Bible means by blind, deaf, and dumb. You are not able to perceive what is actually going on, but you think that you know what's going on because of your own lust and your own vain opinion. Okay, so I want to make sure that I teach the saints that will listen to this room at this time or another, that it is very easy to be deceived by Satan. It's extremely easy. He's been given the power to deceive. So I don't want you to feel as if this isn't a battle that you actually have to fight your hardest to win. Okay, and this is including myself as well. With that being said, we left off with a Northern Kingdom example. Right? We left off last week with Jeroboam, the son of Nebat, who caused all Israel to sin by raising up idols in Ephraim for them to serve and teaching them that these were in fact the idols that brought them out of the land of Egypt. That's where we left off. And the reason why he was doing that is because he felt in his heart, the pride of his heart deceived him. And he felt that if he allowed those he was ruling over to actually go to Jerusalem and serve the Lord the correct way, then they would be drawn to rebel against him and serve Rehoboam, which was the son of Solomon. But the issue with that way of thinking, the deception in that was the Lord already told this brother Jeroboam that he was going to reign and rule according to all his desire. He told him that, and he said, I will establish you if you serve me just like my servant David did. So the thought that came into his head was satanic. Right? It was from Satan. Satan deceived him through his own lust for power and control into believing, hey, I need to set up and establish these idols here and teach the people that these are the representations of the Most High God that delivered you out of the land of Egypt. And I was explaining last week that we don't really understand how idolatry works. So I'm going to have to do an in-depth class on that one day so we can understand ancient idolatry and modern day idolatry. So what was being done wasn't like, hey, Yahweh isn't the most high power. They weren't doing that. A lot of people, when they read Kings and Judges, they have the understanding based off of a modern perspective of what the idolatry must have looked like. Like we were just saying, F the most high, we're going to do this over here. No, it wasn't like that. It was through the lust of the flesh and the lust of the eyes and the pride of life. And we're going to talk more about that. So basically what he did was he set up and established these idols and said, this is the representation of the power that brought you from Egypt. And they said, okay, we don't have to go to Jerusalem. We can just do it here. But God said, no, don't do that. That's why he wrote what he wrote and said what he said, right? And particularly Exodus, the 20th chapter and the 2nd verse. This is the power that brought you out of the land of Egypt. Don't have any other gods before me. And he said that first to the children of Israel because he knows how susceptible we are going to be to deception through these idols, these vain things. Okay. So this is what has been going on. This is what has been going on since we became a nation. And everybody can learn from this. Those who are Israelites and those who are not. You can learn from this because ultimately we are the ones that are going to be instructing the whole earth. We're going to be teaching them the way of righteousness. I think I might have to make that my next class, the way of righteousness. We'll be teaching them the way of righteousness, and you'll be learning from us so you could come and watch too, right? And share the videos and things of that nature. Okay. I won't pronounce all of your judgments and things like that unless you ask me to, or you come and challenge me. You can come and just listen as well. So with that being said, I want to give a Southern Kingdom example. That was Northern Kingdom. The nation split, and we always go and teach the history behind that. I want to give a Southern Kingdom example for Judah, Benjamin, Levi, just so that we can all establish it's not just Northern Kingdom that is off into idolatry. It was equally Judah as well. And it actually was worse for us that we did it because what we began to do was hold the truth in unrighteousness. He gave us, ultimately, after he separated from the Northern Kingdom, charge of his oracles. Right? Like Paul says, what advantage does have a Jew? Right? Chiefly because it was committed to him, the oracles of God. I think that's Romans chapter 2 from the top. All right. So it's actually worse that we, right, I'm Southern Kingdom, according to my understanding, we did the same thing. And I want to show us doing the same thing as well. Go to Jeremiah chapter 3, and you're going to read verses 9 through 11.
God, this is the book of Jeremiah chapter 3, starting at verse 9. And it came to pass through the likeness of her whoredom that she defiled the land and committed adultery with stones and with stocks.
Mm-hmm.
And yet for all this, her treacherous sister Judah hath not turned unto me with her whole heart, but feignedly,
Mm-hmm.
vainly, saith the Lord.
Mm-hmm.
And the
So, Salaki, we'll stop right there. So the verse 9 is talking about Northern Kingdom, and then verse 10 is talking about how Judah seen what was going on, and then they did the same thing. And notice how it says they served the Lord, but they served him vainly, right? That means that they were half-stepping with it. That means that they were keeping the Passover, but they were also going to keep Baal's high holy day as well. That's what was going on in Judah. They were doing both. Right? They'll wear their fringes, and then they'll go into Chemosh's high place and have a strip club party. This is how Judah began to live. Okay, so all of Israel is guilty of the same thing. It's just on different levels. Okay, now verse 11.
Verse 11. And the Lord said unto me, the backsliding Israel hath justified herself more than treacherous Judah.
You see that? The backsliding Israel have justified herself more than treacherous Judah. What he's saying is that there was more honest and sincere people at that time, right, and moving forward in Northern Kingdom. And you can see that even throughout the New Testament. You can see that right at the beginning. You had the prophetess Anna. She was Northern Kingdom, right? You had the Samaritan woman, right? She believed, she was still walking in the ways of Northern Kingdom and worshiping at Samaria and things of that nature. But she believed, she had the faith, and she understood who Christ was. This is what it's going into. They actually were more sincere than the Jews who just pretended that they were keeping the law, that they were righteous, right? But behind closed doors, they were living a completely different lifestyle, which we're going to talk about in this class today. Okay, you'll understand as I go through class why we had to do a part 2. There were some things that I just had to emphasize more than others, and it would have taken me 4 to 5 hours if I did that in one class, and we don't have that kind of time. Right? So with that being said, let's move now to the Southern Kingdom example. Go to First Maccabees chapter 1, and you're going to start at verse 10. First Maccabees chapter 1 and start at verse 10. Can you go there?
God. It's the book of First Maccabees chapter 1 and verse 10. And there came out of them a wicked root, Antiochus, surnamed Epiphanes, son of Antiochus the king, who had been in hostage at Rome. And he reigned in the 137th year of the kingdom of the Greeks.
Read.
In those days went there out of Israel wicked men, who persuaded many, saying, let us go and make a covenant with the heathen that are round about us. For since we departed from them, we have had much sorrow.
You see that? So this is what happens. There are wicked men inside the nation that know the truth, that follow the customs, that say all the sayings that we say, that wear the garments, things of that nature. But they decided in their heart, this is the deception. The deception is we should live and make a covenant with the heathen, right? Because our lives have been worse without them. So they felt like the power to upgrade their life, if you will, or to live their best life, as we say, was by joining the heathen. And this is what Israel constantly has a problem with. We are enamored by the culture of the others. That happened at the very inception of our nation when the Lord brought us into our land, and we're going to read about that. But this is a consistent narrative. We always feel a need to take after the culture of others, even though we constantly see everybody wanting to do what we do.
Right.
And we know that. If we put a hat on backwards, they're going to put a hat on backwards. When we wear Timberlands untied, they get Timberlands and wear them untied. And I mean everybody else on earth. That's what I mean, they. They want to do what we do, and we want to do what they do. Keep reading.
God. So this device pleased them well.
It what?
So this device pleased them well.
They were pleased at this. Yeah, let's go and join ourselves to the Greeks who have now conquered and taken over everything. Right? Surely the Lord must be with them. That's what they were really saying.
Mhm.
Right? See, we got to understand it um, in its true perspective. What they're saying is because they have the dominion and the power, the Lord must be with them, and He's not with us. That's how we process things back in that time. Right? Who's in control? Who has authority? That's who the Lord is with. That's how come, when you look at the example with Jeremiah with King Cyrus, right? The Lord raised up King Cyrus and things of that nature. So the people were well aware of who had the power, who had the authority, and how things were going to be. So what they decided to do was, since it's going to be this way, we might as well go and join them. That's the deception, though, because you think that your life is going to be made easier by those who are put in power to oppress you. And this is what's wrong with our people by and large, Black and Hispanics, especially in the United States. You have faith that your oppressor is going to make your life better, but your oppressor is there to be your oppressor. He's not there to make your life better. Okay? The system isn't here to make you better, to grow you spiritually. It's not here for that. It's here to oppress you. It's here to keep you blind, deaf, and dumb. Okay? Keep reading.
God. Then certain of the people were so forward herein that they went to the king, who gave them license to do after the ordinances of the heathen.
So the Lord said, don't learn the ordinances or the ways of the heathen. That's Jeremiah, the 10th chapter. Okay? Don't do that. Okay? But they got license from a man to do the things that would make them a part of that culture. Okay? You have license today to do that, to do the things that would amalgamate you in the culture of your oppressor. That's why they give you Christmas off, right? Normally. That's why they're going to give you January 1st off. That's not our new year. God says it starts in April, right? But they're going to give you that day off so you can go and participate in their custom. And then you go and you do that and you say, hey, it's a day off, right? And then you go and you participate in events like Easter and Thanksgiving, right? And those types of pagan holidays that are not according to our custom, because they give you the opportunity to do so and they tell you it's in the name of a good time. Okay? And this is how Israel has always thought. Israel has always thought about having a good time first, and then serve the Lord. Keep reading.
God. So this Salakia, verse 14. Whereupon they built a place of exercise at Jerusalem
Mhm.
according to the customs of the heathen.
They built a place of exercise at Jerusalem. This is the confirmation of this is Southern Kingdom we're talking about. Northern Kingdom is already gone. Okay, by and large, they're still around, but by and large, they're already gone. Okay, so we begin to build like the Zeus gymnasiums and things like that in Jerusalem, in the place where the Lord put His name. This is the ultimate level of disrespect. Keep reading.
God. And made themselves
And
uncircumcised,
did what?
and made themselves
Now, how
uncircumcised.
can you make yourself uncircumcised? It's letting you know that it's not talking about the uncircumcision of the flesh here. You can't uncircumcise yourself. You can't put your foreskin back on in that spot, right? It's not talking about a literal circumcision. It's talking about a spiritual circumcision. Them being uncircumcised in heart, as Deuteronomy 10 and 15 let you know you shouldn't be. You should circumcise your heart. But they made themselves uncircumcised, meaning they forgot the Lord and His ways and fully committed to the way of the heathen. Read.
God. and made themselves uncircumcised, and forsook the holy covenant, and joined themselves to the heathen, and were sold to do mischief.
Meaning they were determined to do what was wrong. They were also determined to make sure, since they made that decision, all the rest of their brethren, regardless of how they felt, needed to make the decision too. And see, that's the thing about deception. When you have a group of deceived individuals who put forth something and do something against what God's will is, they want to go out and cause other people to do the same thing too. Hey, you have to believe that this is the way over here. Then it becomes contentious. Mm-hmm. It becomes contentious not because of the righteous, but because of the wicked, right? Even when we look back at the beginning in the example that we went through with Adam and Eve, the wicked brought the smoke to the righteous. The righteous just be minding their own business, right? But the wicked, you're going to come and say, hey, you need to move this way. You need to break the laws of God. And of course, they don't say it like that. It's much more enticing than that because it's through your lust. But I'm telling you what's actually happening. You need to come and behave this way and break the laws of God with us. This is the best thing for us. That's what they begin to do. So that's what it means when it says they were sold to do mischief. When you continue to read down, right, it became ordinance that anybody that would not become an idolater and a lover of Greek custom and Greek fashion should be what? Put to death. So this is the part of our history where Jews became Greeks. This is who Paul was speaking to in his epistle. This kind of individual that we're reading about right here, right? Which is why it's extremely important to have the Apocrypha in whatever Bible that you decide to read. Okay, you can get a 1611, you can get an Apocrypha on its own, its original canon. And it's a part of the Bible that explains, right, what you're missing in the New Testament from a cultural perspective. With that being said, this is the Southern Kingdom of example. And what we did was we dedicated ourselves, by and large, to doing what the Greeks did. The togas, the hats, the worshiping of their gods, the whole nine. And of course, there was a remnant or one who stood up against that. Okay, all praises to the Most High. And this is where we get the Feast of Hanukkah from. But by and large, most of the Israelites decided to go this route. And so it's common. We have been deceived as a nation from generation to generation to generation to generation, and it's no different now. I'm only here to make that known and to exhort those of you who are not of that fold to come over here. Come over here, right? With that being read, let's go to Sirach chapter 3, verse 24.
God, this is the book of Sirach, chapter 3, and verse 24. For many are deceived by their own vain opinion,
Mm-hmm.
and an evil suspicion hath overthrown their judgment.
And because of the lust of your flesh and the lust of your eyes and the pride of life, you develop an opinion. You develop an opinion about yourself. You develop an opinion about other people. You develop an opinion about different situations. And because you see things a certain way based on your own vain opinion, that is deceiving you, because the heart is deceitful above all things and desperately wicked. Jeremiah 17:9, I believe. Because of that, you don't have good sense. Right? You don't have the ability to judge and to see things for what they are. You can't do it. And this is every week I keep having to reiterate this point that I just experienced. I've experienced that firsthand in the last few weeks. People's own vain opinions about themselves and other individuals overthrows their judgment. It overthrows your judgment, and then you have to come back a month or two later and be like, well, it really wasn't like what I thought it was. Then you have to come back and feel that whole thing because you're just deceived by your own vain opinion. You're deceived by how it looks to you and the experiences that you've had in similar situations. And then you develop an opinion already, and you will ignore the truth. You will ignore the facts, or you will push them in and diminish them and say that they aren't relevant or they aren't important. Okay. So you're deceived. It says many are deceived by their own vain opinion, and an evil suspicion has overthrown their judgment. Now, what was the evil suspicion? The brother that's saying this stuff got an ulterior motive, right? He just wants to do this. That's it. Literally played out. Yeah, he got his own thing he wants to do. He wants to start his own camp, and this is why the brother say he don't like this brother, and this is why the brother's saying this stuff. That's the evil suspicion that has overthrown a lot of people's judgment. It's so sad. Like the more I think about it, it's just so saddening as the days go on. I digress, but not really. It's still a point. Okay. With that being said, let's go now to 1 Timothy 4, and you're going to read verses 1 and 2.
God, it's the book of First Timothy, chapter 4, and verse 1. Now the Spirit speaketh expressly, that in the latter times some shall depart from the faith, giving heed to seducing spirits and doctrines of devils, speaking lies and hypocrisy, having their conscience seared with a hot iron.
Wait, it says what? Having what?
Having their conscience seared with a hot iron.
And that's what happens. The conscience is seared. It's like, hey, do you think this is okay to do? I mean, come on, man. We all go through that. But I didn't ask you that, though. The conscience is seared with a hot iron. There's no conscience when an evil suspicion has overthrown your judgment. You lose consciousness of the truth and the facts of the matter. That's what happens. And you've been deceived by your own vain opinion, and you've been caught by a seducing spirit. I want to get into that. Seducing spirits. There are.
Oh, you muted. You muted.
Salakia. I was muted on Clubhouse, right? So, speaking lies and hypocrisy, having their conscience seared with a hot iron. Okay. So I do want to make sure that I say for the Clubhouse audience, excuse me, I do mute up because there's an echo, right, when he reads, and sometimes I forget to unmute. So I'm going to do my best, but we do have the YouTube available. Okay. So with that being said, speaking lies and hypocrisy, having their conscience seared with a hot iron. So then you start to double talk. Well, does it matter what I'm saying, or does it not matter? Is it relevant or is it not? Should I have said something or should I not? And then it's both answers. It's always both. Is it righteous or is it wicked? It's always both answers. This is what happens. Right? You start to double talk and you start to not make sense to the people who are just looking and don't have their conscience here with the hot iron, who can see it clearly and just is like, yeah, this is wrong. This is the divide that we have within the nation. Ultimately, we can talk about how it's doctrinal and things like that, and that is a problem, right? That we have is that we try to force each other's doctrines and understandings down our spiritual throats, right? And we ought to stop doing that. I just want to take the time to say, as the Sanctuary of Saints, we believe that it's time for Israel to stop doing that. Okay. I'm not a boxer. All right. I teach the Bible. I don't have to box you in these scriptures. for whose understanding is correct and incorrect. All right. Let every man be convinced in their own heart. And that's the understanding that we should have and try to move forward together. Just to address that. But this is what we do as a people on a consistent basis. This is how we are. These are the two sides, if you will. So it says, now the Spirit speaketh expressly. These are the latter times that we're in. It says, some shall depart from the faith. You have people that depart from the faith and they admit and acknowledge that they depart from the faith. And then people that depart from the faith, but they proclaim to be in the faith. So I don't want you guys to look at this verse and think, oh, those are the people that quote unquote fell out the truth and started celebrating Christmas again, right? Yeah, those two, but that's not necessarily, especially what Paul is talking about. Paul is talking about individuals that profess and proclaim to be inside the faith because then they draw other people away out of the faith with them, right? Through their own lust for fame, for power, for authority, for money or whatever else, as we're going to get to in class. Okay. Speaking lies in hypocrisy. That's what happens. Lies begin to be told about the truth, right? Things become twisted. We seen that, right? Yeah, we seen it clean. Situations that you spoke cleanly on, you go to another clubhouse room and the story is completely different. That's speaking lies and hypocrisy. And their conscience is seared because they won't even go back to the source and actually hear what was actually said because they already have their own vain opinion and they're going to spew that out. This is what's going on in the nation. From situation to situation to situation. So it says, some shall depart from the faith, giving heed. This is the heavy part right here. To seducing spirits. I want to talk about that. Giving heed to seducing spirits. Seducing spirits are extremely powerful. Right? It's the spirit of Satan that comes upon an individual, right? That causes that individual to seduce others, to get them to believe lies, right? To get them to walk in falsehood and hypocrisy. We have several examples, and we went through one. Jeroboam, the son of Nebat, that's a seducing spirit. He's known in the Bible as the king that caused all Israel to sin. We see several examples, and we're going to get more. Seducing spirits lead Israel astray. This is what Christ is speaking about when he says they are blind leaders of the blind, and they're going to both fall into the ditch. They're seducing their followers, right, into following them into the ditch. Right. And the seduction happens through what? The gifts that God has given you. That's how Satan uses those gifts that God has given you, each and every individual, to seduce others. Because you use that gift to what? Magnify and glorify your own lust, your own thirst for power or women or authority or whatever it is. And then you take that gift that God has given you and you seduce others with it. And in your mind, you're not seducing others with it because it's what? Your own lust. Right? Every man is right in their own eyes. That's what the Bible is saying. This is why the way of deception is powerful. Because the deceived and the deceiver are his, right? But also, the deceived and the deceiver are on the same page. They're both deceived, and they can't see it any other way, right? Now, Brother Isaac put hypnosis. I like that, right? Hypnosis. Sometimes you get spellbound. And how do you know if that's the case? How would you know? It's difficult to know, right? But you would actually have to examine the things that people do versus the things that people say. That would be the only way to know. That's why Christ said, you will know them by their what? Their fruits. Yep. That's your works. Yep. That's the only way you can identify what? A wolf in sheep's clothing, as he was going to. Right? A false teacher, a false prophet. You're only going to know them by the things that they do. You're not going to know them by the things that they say. I don't know why this is difficult for Israel to understand. I don't get it personally. So those that can speak like none other, they are heard, they are listened to, they are hypnotized through the words. And because of the words, they have no care about the actions of the individual. And we're going to read that in the Bible. We're going to actually read it in the Bible. I don't have to be talking about a live, legit, real situation. I am. But we can also read it exactly here because it's consistent. It's a consistent thing. So I'm not going to play like it's not. I'm not going to act shocked and surprised at the current state of our nation. All right. So with that being said, let's go to 2 Timothy chapter 4 and read verses 3 and 4.
Gone. It's the book of 2 Timothy chapter 4 and starting at verse 3.
Mm-hmm.
For the time will come when they will not endure sound doctrine.
Stop right there. The time will come where they will not endure sound doctrine. And when we read this verse and break it down, we mostly talk about from the angle of like keeping the laws of God and the faith in Christ. Right? They don't want to hear it on the streets. We understand that. I can make an example out of that. But remember, I want this message to be a little closer to home. Right? So yes, that's a way to teach it. People don't want to endure what the truth is, but also people don't want to endure the truth being enforced, the truth being promoted to the detriment of your lust, to the exposing of your flesh. That's what this is going into as well. You don't want to be told, hey, you got to repent from this. That's what it's also going into when they won't endure sound doctrine, because what sound doctrine is also rebuke. Mm-hmm. That's what Leviticus 19, we always say, right? You shall also rebuke your neighbor and not suffer sin upon them. Mm-hmm. See, we don't want to endure that, though. Right? That's sound doctrine. We don't want to endure that. We want to be hypnotized, be spellbound, talked to nicely, right? Made to laugh, so forth and so on. Okay? And we got to stop. The mature saints have to see that, and you have to pivot from it. Because those that are deceived will not make it. That's the scary part. You're not going to make it. It doesn't matter if you know you're an Israelite or not. It doesn't matter if you've kept 10 Passovers. It doesn't matter how many Sabbath days consecutively you've kept. It doesn't matter how long you've eaten according to the dietary law. That doesn't matter when you become deceived. Okay? So now I want to give, actually, what verse were you at? Were you at verse 3 or 4?
I was still in verse 3.
All right, finish that.
Come. For the time will come when they will not endure sound doctrine, but after their own lusts shall they heap to themselves teachers having itching ears.
Having what?
Itching ears.
Itching ears. What I want to hear. I want to hear the smooth words. I want to hear it's okay. I want to hear it's not like that. I want to hear what I want to hear. And I don't want to hear anything that I don't want to hear. I'm going to go to the teacher that says the things that I like to hear on a consistent basis. I'm not going to go to the teacher that's going to hold me accountable. I'm not going to listen to that teacher. Right? That teacher irritates my soul. So I'm not going to endure that sound doctrine that comes from that teacher. Keep reading.
Gone. Verse 4. And they shall turn away their ears from the truth, and shall be turned unto fables.
Good God Almighty. Then you're gonna turn. So when you have the itching ears, you're gonna stop your ears and say, "Hey, that truth that you're saying over there, we don't want to hear that. We're gonna turn to the fable." Right? You know what a fable is? Can you look that up? The water. You're gonna be turned to a fable. Let's see what that is. A fable is a short, concise fictional story, often in prose or verse, that uses animals, legendaries, creatures, plants, or inanimate objects. Um, that's not the one I was looking for, but that's fine. Fables are typically designed to, this is the point. Fables are typically designed to teach a specific moral truth, which is often stated explicitly at the end as a maxim or saying. So like people will begin to like make up truths, right? Make up stories, make up truths that you believe. That's the point of a fable. Right? And of course, it's supposed to be designed to teach you a story. Right? But the point is that you will be turned to fake truths. This is the biblical. Let's see what this one says. A fictitious story used for moral instruction or false teachings. That's the good one. Yeah, this is the good one, right? Because it's still the same. It's the same principle, but it just gets more in depth. So it says fictitious stories used for moral instruction or false teachings. You'll be turned to false teachings, false truths. It'll happen. It happens inside the faith, predominantly, is what we're talking about, and outside the faith. The ones outside, you're outside. You're trying to come inside. But the ones inside is who need to be warned. Okay? Because there's nothing worse than feeling like you're inside and believing that you're inside, and the whole time the Lord is thinking, I don't know you. Yeah, and depart from me. I never knew you. All your work you did was in iniquity. Why? Because you were deceived. You were walking in deceit. You were doing the work deceived, speaking lies in hypocrisy, and you don't even realize that you're speaking the lies in hypocrisy. You don't even realize it. You just sound crazy, right? With that being said, let's get an example. I want to talk about a seducing spirit. A seducing spirit in the form of a woman that we refer to all the time when we want to knock Eve and say it's a Jezebel spirit. Right? We're going to be talking about Jezebel. Okay, so let's go to Revelation chapter 2, verse 20. We're going to talk about Jezebel, the seducing spirit. Revelation 2, verse 20.
Gone. This is the book of Revelation, chapter 2, and verse 20. Notwithstanding, I have a few things against thee, because thou sufferest that woman Jezebel, which calleth herself a prophetess, to teach and to seduce my servants to commit fornication, and to eat things sacred unto idols.
Sacrificed unto idols.
Sacrifice unto idols. Salaki.
Okay. So I went here because it talks about what Jezebel has done, right? Who Jezebel is and the kind of spirit she has. So she feigned herself to be a prophetess, and we're going to go to the stories in which she brought in her own prophets to replace the prophets of God. Right? And she taught what? She taught and to seduce the servant. It says, to teach and to seduce my servants to commit fornication. Right? That's what she did. She was able to do that because of King Ahab's lust, right? Which drew him away, and we're going to read that. But what she did was she taught and seduced the Israelites to worship other gods and to eat things sacrificed unto idols. Right? So that's just talking about partying, celebrating in the name of this power and things like that. It was like eating things. I want you guys to understand. It's like when it says eating things sacrificed unto idols, is y'all think about like some type of a ritual and like your feet is together and your hands is like in the little pose and you're like, I sacrifice this to. No, it's not talking about it like that. It's saying you had a feast and y'all had a good time and y'all was eating and drinking and being merry in the name of this God, to the goddess of fertility, right? To the goddess of power, things of that nature, and strength. All right? And this is what Jezebel did. She caused Israel to go further into idolatry. All right? It was so bad that the actual prophets of God were in hiding. We're going to read that. She ran them, she killed a lot of them, and then Obadiah hid the others. So she actually ran God's prophets out of their own land. That's what she was able to do. And do you think she was like, dragony and see, this is the only thing that I don't agree with when we make this comparison. We always talk about Eve when she's like scratching and clawing and fighting and being disrespectful, and then you say that's Jezebel. No, that's not Jezebel. Jezebel wasn't like that. You think Jezebel was just like mean and came off as malicious? No, she came off as a sweetheart, right? Now, when she got the power, then she began to make decisions that would demonstrate her malicious intent, but she did not appear to the people as that. That's the point. She appeared to the people as a beautiful woman, and she likes to have a good time. And we're going to have a good time a new way, right? I know you guys serve the God of Israel, but look at what we can do over here. That's how she came across. She didn't come across as like assertive and dominant and aggressive. And I'm going to actually read that. She didn't come across that way. So when brothers compare Eve to Jezebel, most of the time is not correct. It's not a correct comparison, because you're talking about Eve and her dragon-like tendencies, and then you're associating that with Jezebel. Am I right about, do brothers do that? Right? But that's not how Jezebel was. It says, seduce my servants. So it's hypnosis. It's not, da, 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 and you do this. It's not that. It's not that. It wasn't that. Right? So now let's get some examples of what. Let's see how Jezebel was able to seduce and teach the Israelites to commit fornication. Let's break this down. 1 Kings chapter 16, verse 30.
Come. It's the book of 1 Kings chapter 16 and verse 30. Mm-hmm. Salaki. And Ahab, the son of Omri, did evil in the sight of the Lord above all that were before him. And it came to pass as if it had been a light thing for him to walk in the sins of Jeroboam, the sons of Nebat, that he took to wife Jezebel, the daughter of Ethbaal, king of the Zidonians, and went and served Baal and worshipped him.
So he was saying, the author is saying here, it wasn't enough that he's already walking in Jeroboam's sin that we already talked about, right? Now he set Israel up for failure by getting them to believe that these calves were the representations of the Most High. You're already doing that, all right? That's bad enough. But then you go and you marry a woman of one of the nations that God said not to marry, because your heart would be turned to their gods. The same mistake that we spoke about concerning Solomon, right? And his lust for women. Mm-hmm. He married the same type of woman, right? He married a Zidonian. So for those that don't know who the Zidonians are, I'm going to give you a brief history lesson. I'll hold where you at and go to Genesis chapter 10 and read verse 15.
Gone. It's the book of Genesis, chapter 10 and verse 15. And Canaan begat Sidon, his firstborn, and Heth.
All right. So this is why it's important to know the history and the names and the who's who, right, in the Bible. It's important to know that for these reasons. I know a lot of y'all find all the names and stuff boring, but this is how you learn about who the peoples of the earth are and how they move. So the Zidonians come from Sidon, which is the first son of Canaan. They're Canaanites. Okay. The Zidonians come from Canaan. They're Canaanites. So these are the nations that God said, don't marry them. Okay? So a lot of people that say Zidonians, that's not one of the lists that I see in Deuteronomy 7, right? Deuteronomy 7 is an overview of the people group that he doesn't want you to marry. There's subsections of Canaanites, right? You have Canaan, and then you have their descendants. He's saying don't marry Canaan or none of his descendants. And people get stuck up in the names and things of that nature. So I just want to bring a little clarity. He married a woman of a Canaanite nation. Okay. And the Canaanites are individuals that God said don't marry. They were what? They've been cursed for a long time. Right? That's who our forefather cursed. Okay. And all of his descendants. This is why. All right. So now, just a quick history. That was just a quick history lesson. Of course, we can do more. Okay, but that's where when you see Zidon or the Zidonians, whether it's spelled with an S or with a Z, it's the same thing. Okay. Go to 1 Kings 11 and read verses 1 and 2.
Gone. It's the book of 1 Kings, chapter 11 and verse 1. But King Solomon loved many strange women, together with the daughter of Pharaoh, women of the Moabites, Ammonites, Edomites, Zidonians, and Hittites, of the nations concerning which the Lord said unto the children of Israel, Ye shall not go in, Salakia, ye shall not go into them, neither shall they come in unto you. For surely they will turn your heart away, after Salakia, turn away your heart after their gods. Solomon clave unto these in love.
Go to Exodus chapter 34 and verse 12. All right, everybody has Deuteronomy 7 down most of the time, right? You Israelites. This is where you should also have. You should have this. And this explains it further, if you would. Exodus 34 and 12.
Gone. This is the book of Exodus, chapter 34 and verse 12. Take heed to thyself, lest thou make a covenant with the inhabitants of the land whither thou goest, lest it be for a snare in the midst of thee.
This is where I go to prove that it's talking specifically about the Canaanites and not the other nations, right? Who Moses married and things of that nature, right? This is the first place before Deuteronomy 7, Deuteronomy's second law, right? So it says it's talking about in the land that I'm giving you to possess. Read.
Gone. But ye shall destroy their altars, break their images, and cut down their groves.
Now, why do you think the Lord would tell them to do that? Anybody can say it in the chat. Ron, you can say it. Brother Isaac, you can say it. Why do you think that the Most High told them to cut those things down?
Because he didn't want us to follow after their gods.
And there'd be no remembrance of their gods.
Yeah. Those, I wouldn't say that those are incorrect answers. Yeah, I'm looking for something more specific as it pertains to the lesson, though. You see if anybody on Clubhouse. Because they're gonna like what they see. Because they're gonna look at them and say, "It's not that looks dope," right? That's why we have Buddhas in our houses and the feng shuis and all of it, because it looks cool. These things look dope. The lust of the eyes. Right? So when you see those things, you're, oh man, I should put that in. That would be a nice decoration. Right? And what is this for? This is supposed to generate wealth. Oh yeah, I gotta have that. That's why the Lord is saying, break them down. Don't even entertain them, because they're going to cause you to go out. Not because they might, they will do it. So he's saying the lust that you have in your eyes, you will fall for this thing. Keep reading.
Gone. Verse 14. For thou shalt worship no other God.
And see, people don't understand what it means to worship another God. If there's a God that people say represents wealth and prosperity, and you go and you have a feast and say, we're gonna level up and get money this year in the name of whatever this God is, right? When you do, that's what they were doing back then, and that's what we do today, just in a different way. That's what it means to worship another God. You're gonna serve that God, right? You're gonna do whatever that God requires you to do for what you desire. That's why he said, don't sacrifice your children to Molech. People were sacrificing their children to Molech for prosperity and gain and things of that nature. Right? That's what that God provides, that power or that entity provides. And of course, we did a class that I'll have to redo again for YouTube purposes, dealing with spiritual warfare, right? And the power that the nations of the gods, of the other gods that have been given by the Most High, right? So the point is, we are easily enticed by the things that we see, the gods of the other nations. We're easily enticed. That's why you got brothers with huge Jesus pieces on, right? And huge crosses, right? Unks, yep, right? Because we're easily enticed. And you got brothers talking about their 1% and 2%ers, Egyptologists, Moors, all of this kind of stuff. We're so easily enticed by those other things, right? Like we don't have our own thing. Like we don't have our own culture. Or we try to mix cultures. There's a word that, my elder priest Daniela uses. I forget it at the time. I don't forget it. It's synchronism. We like synchronism, where we just combine faith. That's where you get a holiday like Easter from. But he rose on the third day with an Easter bunny. How did we get that? All right, synchronism, for example. Jesus is the reason for the season, but it's about Christmas and present stuff. Right? And of course, we know where these things come from, right? But I digress. This is what we do. So God said, don't do this. Break down and destroy their images. You'll be enticed to worship them. Keep reading.
Gone. For thou shalt worship no other God. For the Lord whose name is jealous is a jealous God.
You gonna give that entity your worship when I gave it its power? You're gonna acknowledge that over me? How dare you? I made this water bottle, you know that, and you worship in the water bottle. I made this. You're gonna worship this? Nah, we're gonna have problems. This is how the Most High thinks, because we are his portion. Right? And we'll have to go over this in another class. That's why he's called consistently throughout the Bible the God of Israel. That's why the other nations call him the God of Israel, because we understood whose God was whose. Okay? So he's saying, hey, I'm jealous. And the reason why he can be jealous, they say, well, why would a God be jealous? He can be jealous because he made everything. Why are you worshiping a thing that I made? When I said worship me, if I was the creator, I would be jealous of that too. I would imagine, right? That's like if you got a son or a daughter, right? And they go to school and they come back home and they're calling somebody else dad or mom and talking about how much they take care of them and how much they love them. and you looking like, hey, I provide for you every day. I got a roof over your head. I put clothes on your back. I feed you. I'm the one that birthed you. I changed your diapers. And you talking about somebody else being dad, somebody else being mom. You like them more than me. Right? Y'all, some of y'all had y'all kids say, oh, I don't like you. I like them more than me. I like them more than you. Right? And you know how you feel. That will create some jealousy. Right? So with that being said, that's how the Most High is. Keep reading.
Verse 15. Lest thou make a covenant with the inhabitants of the land, and they go a whoring after their gods.
You see that? He says, this is going to happen. He said, you got to do this because it says, lest thou make a covenant. And then we just read, we want to make a covenant with the heathen. That's what, like everything that God said don't do or else this would happen, it happened. Many times in the Bible. And this is what I noticed. Every law when I read the Bible, every law that God said to keep, we broke. Like you can see clean example. I'm reading it and it's not, even the Bible doesn't even call it sin all the time. It expects you to know that was a sin. And I can show several examples of that. I'm like, man, we're not supposed to do that. Now, it's not even saying, yeah, he sinned before. It's just saying he was doing X, Y, and Z. And you're supposed to know we're not supposed to do that. That's bad. And this is what we were doing consistently throughout the Bible. Everything that God said would happen if we did X, Y, and Z, it happened. That's why this book is so powerful to me. Okay. And this is what we begin to do. Read on.
Gone. And thou take Salakia and do sacrifice unto their gods, and one call thee, and thou eat of his sacrifice. And thou take of their daughters unto
Where it says,
son.
and one call thee, and thou eat of his sacrifice. Y'all know what that means? That means when you go and you become friends with somebody, they say, hey, come over for dinner. Right. We throwing steak. I know y'all don't eat pork, but we gonna put some steak on the grill. Right? This is our day where we celebrate fertility. Come on over and hang out. That's what God is saying is going to happen. Right? That's what he's jealous of. He don't like when we do those kinds of things. Read on.
Come. Thou shalt make thee no molten image.
That's all I need.
Okay.
So this is what the mistake was of Solomon. Solomon made this mistake and he joined to that woman. And then King Ahab did the same thing. But I want to show y'all, why would we marry a Zidonian? I want to show you guys something. Why would King Solomon marry a Zidonian? Why would King Ahab marry a Zidonian? I'm going to show you guys. Go to 1 Kings and read chapter 5, verse 6. I'm going to show you guys why an Israelite king would marry a Zidonian.
God, this is the book of 1 Kings, chapter 5 and verse 6. Now, therefore, command thou that they hew me cedar trees out of Lebanon, and my servants shall be with thy servants, and unto thee I will hire for thy servants according to all that thou shalt appoint. For thou knowest that there is not among us any that can skill to hew timber like unto the Zidonians.
Like unto who?
The Zidonians.
So this chapter is the chapter in which the what is built. What is being built in this chapter? You know, Aharon? What is being constructed here?
Temples.
The what?
Temples?
No. Or a temple, right? What is Solomon doing here? Who knows in the chat? Sister Jewess answered the other question. All right. Anybody know what's being built here?
Oh, a temple to the Most High God?
Exactly. All right. Our holy place, the temple. The temple of God. So you said temples, but I think he was meaning in context of the other gods. No, the temple. You know, when Christ is walking on Solomon's porch, right? The temple, the holy place, that whole thing, you know. So who did he use to construct and cut and design? He used the Zidonians because they was the top craftsmen. So this is what made us enticed and go into idolatry, because they made beautiful sculptures all the time. There was nobody better than them on the earth in doing that. This is why an Israelite king would marry a Zidonian. Because of this, they have wonderful workmanship. And in fact, we have our temple because of them. Ironically, right? But they were supposed to come and follow our ways, right? And not the other way, exactly, and not the other way around. But we decided to make covenants with these people. That's why people didn't understand, like, the relationship that he had with King Tyre. Okay, that was, see, you flirting with disaster when you're doing that. And it's like, yeah, I'm gonna use this person. And now the Bible doesn't say that this was a sin, but it was like towing the line, because you allow that seducing spirit. Man, that is a beautiful sculpture. I wonder what else they have over there. Look what they built for us. Right? Now and then you see their women. And I don't know why. I just want to make this point. I don't know why Israelites act like the women in other nations aren't beautiful. This is going to ruffle some feathers. I know we like to talk about how unattractive all of these other women is, but that's not what the Bible says. The Bible doesn't say that. I'm gonna show you guys something. I'm just showing you that it was the lust of the eyes too. She was a beautiful woman, and she had a culture that was intriguing. Y'all think Solomon was marrying ugly women? Like, brothers, we trying to act like it's not beautiful women in every single nation. Watch this. I'm gonna show y'all. It's right in our law. Go to Deuteronomy 21. Am I saying I'm going to marry a woman of another nation? Absolutely not. But I'm trying to show in the class, right, why these things happen. Go to Deuteronomy 21 and read verse 10.
God, this is the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 21 and verse 10. When thou goest forth to war against thine enemies, and the Lord thy God hath delivered them into thine hands, and thou hast taken them captives, and seest among the captives a beautiful woman.
A what?
A beautiful woman.
One more time.
A beautiful woman.
I'm sorry, an ugly woman is a.
A beautiful woman.
So when you see among the captives of the enemies that you just took, a beautiful woman. This is right here in the law. So are other women of the enemies beautiful?
Yes.
Yes, it just say it right here. This is right in the Bible. You can see a beautiful woman. That means there's beautiful women to be seen in the other nations. Read.
God. Salakia. I just lost my place.
Come on, man.
When thou goest forth to war against thine enemies, and the Lord thy God hath
verse 11.
And seest among the captives a beautiful woman, and has desire unto her.
And what?
And has desire unto her.
And has a desire unto her. You see that? You see a beautiful woman and you have a desire. The law says you're going to see a beautiful woman in the captives and you're going to have a desire unto her. You can't say she's not beautiful. You can't say, oh, they're all stringy-haired Edomite dogs and all. Listen, Solomon had one. Keep reading.
God. And has desire unto her. So like my phone tripping.
I'll read it. That thou wouldest have her to thy wife. You see her, she's beautiful. You want to desire her and have her to your wife because you've gotten the victory. God has given you this. You can have her. And then there's just instructions on how to deal with it. The point that I'm saying is beautiful women all over the place, and they have intriguing cultures. And that's why brothers go off. Right. That's the point. All right, and this is what Solomon did. This is what Ahab did in bringing in Jezebel. All right. So I just wanted to give y'all an extensive breakdown on that, and we'll get back to teaching the class. Let's get back to the Jezebel example. Now we have some background and some history on who this Zidonian Jezebel is, and her seducing, that's the point, not her rah and scratching and clawing and telling people what's what and what they're gonna. No, it wasn't like that. It was a seduction. Now go to 1 Kings. Actually, yeah. 1 Kings chapter 18, verse 4.
Gone. It's the book of 1 Kings, chapter 18 and verse 4.
Mhm.
For it was so, when Jezebel cut off the prophets of the Lord, that Obadiah took 100 prophets and hid them by 50 in a cave, and fed them with bread and water.
Right. So Jezebel cut off the prophets of the Lord. How do you think she did that? You think she did it by force? No, she did it by seduction. Hey, these are the gods now. This is what we're moving. This is what we're doing now. We're going to set this up over here. Remember those high places? See, the high places are already set up in Israel. This is why it's easy for her to cut off the prophets. If she didn't do it by force, like she didn't go out there and she didn't command that, hey, go and kill. No, it's like, hey, this is what we're doing now. And everybody's going to get down with it, just like we read in the Maccabees. Okay. So that's what she did. So when it says she cut them off, she was saying they can't be, she made it unlawful, right? Through ordinance for them to prophesy in the name of the Lord. If you were found doing so, you'd be put to death. That's what she did. Same thing as in Greek fashion. And it didn't seem that bad to the people because look what we have. We got more prophets. All right. They replaced them with other prophets. And those other prophets claim to hear from God too. That's why they have prophets of Baal. Like there's other prophets, guys, besides the prophets of the Lord. Y'all understand that, right? The only difference is going to be whether they are the prophets sent from the Most High or if they're one of Satan's prophets. That's it. So she replaced true prophets of God with false prophets. And you know, Israel isn't really good at determining real prophets from false prophets. Israel is terrible at that. That's why, like, you would read this and you're just reading it thinking like, well, how are they just okay with that? Like new prophets coming in because they were deceived. It's all seduction and deception. They were deceived into thinking these are real prophets. They didn't look at it like, oh yeah, this prophet is satanic and we're just going to worship. It wasn't like that. It was, this is a real prophet and we're going to be going with what the Lord is telling them. I can show several examples of that. That's another class for another day. But she replaced true prophets with false prophets through ordinance. And that's what Revelation 2 and 20 is going into. Okay. Read verse 17 through 19. It'll say it.
Gone. It's the book of 1 Kings, chapter 18 and verse 17. And it came to pass when Ahab saw Elijah, that Ahab said unto him, Art thou he that troubleth Israel?
And then Elijah was the one that was said to be troubling Israel. Right? He's the real prophet from God, and he the one that's the troublemaker. Not these other prophets that came in and got and usurped the Lord's land. Right? But he's the troublemaker. Yeah. You know, that's how he's looked at. Keep reading.
And he answered, I have not troubled Israel.
I ain't troubled Israel. I'm like, see, I like him because he wasn't going. He had to let you, hey, look, I'm not troubling. Like, you're not about to say that to me. You know, you got some brothers that'll just let you say stuff to him, and then other brothers that's like, no, I'm not going. He wasn't going. Like, I'm not troubling Israel. Keep reading.
But thou and thy father's house, in that ye have forsaken the commandments of the Lord, and thou hast followed Baalim.
Don't tell me I'm the one that's troubling Israel, and you the one that's in idolatry right now. You guys is the ones that's going off, not me. And all I'm doing is telling y'all going off. And I'm troubling you for telling y'all the truth. I feel this brother pain, bro. I do. Right? Read on.
God. Now therefore send and gather to me all Israel unto Mount Carmel, and the prophets of Baal 450.
How many?
450.
We have 450 prophets of Baal, right, in the land. The real prophets got to go into hiding. That's what it is today. You got all of these fake false prophets and teachers out here seducing people, and they at the forefront, and the real ones got to go into hiding. That's crazy to me, but I see it here because I can't be upset because it's right here. It's happened time and time again. Keep reading.
God. And the prophets of the groves 400, which eat at Jezebel's table.
Which what?
Eat at Jezebel's table.
So she's feeding them. She takes care of them, right? She's a nice person, guys. She's not mean. Jezebel wasn't mean. She just did wicked acts behind the scenes. All right? She's smiling in your face and she looks beautiful and she's decked out. And then behind the scenes, she's influencing. Behind the scenes, we can go to another example. It's 1:30 now. Let me see where we at on in the lesson and where we are on time. See if I can get y'all this example. Y'all go ahead and get y'all this example. I'll cut out the Samson and Delilah example. I had that one too. Right, but I want to show y'all what she would do. It was too. I didn't put this in the notes, but I'll get it anyway. First Kings 19. Let's start at verse 1.
God. It's the book of First Kings, chapter 19.
Actually, no, Salakia, no, not that one. I want another one.
God.
Bear with me. And Salaki, I'm going off of Spirit right now, just to make the point, bolster the point. First Kings 21. First Kings 21.
From the top?
Mm-hmm.
God, it's the book of First Kings, chapter 21, from the top. And it came to pass after these things that Naboth, the Jezreelite, had a vineyard, which was in Jezreel, hard by the palace of Ahab, king of Samaria.
Mm-hmm.
And Ahab spake unto Naboth, saying, Give me thy vineyard, that I may have it for a garden of herbs, because it is near unto my house, and I will give thee for it a better vineyard than it. Or, if it seem good to thee, I will give thee the worth of it in money.
So King Ahab, he wants this land. He wants this brother's vineyard. He's coveting. See, that's the spirit. Remember I told y'all, the Bible don't always say what he's doing and saying, but you're supposed to know it. He's coveting his neighbor's what? His neighbor's vineyard. Thou shalt not cover thy neighbor's house, thy neighbor's ass, anything that is thy neighbor. Y'all know that law? Y'all remember that one? Right? That's what he's doing right here. Right? Read on. This is what it means to covet somebody else's. Hey, man, let me get that, bro. I'll give you a better deal. I'll give you more money for it. That's what it means to covet your neighbor's possessions. Read on.
God. And Naboth said to Ahab, The Lord forbid it me.
He said, what?
The Lord forbid it me.
Can't do it. He said, the Lord. He said, I know you offering money, more money than it's worth. I know you're the king. I know I'm subject unto you, but the Lord forbid it. Like, this is not my decision, my brother. This is God's decision. This is wicked right here. What happens? Go ahead.
God. That I should give the inheritance of my fathers unto thee.
Mm-hmm.
And
he says that I should give the inheritance of my fathers. No, every man is supposed to have their own inheritance. Everybody is supposed to have their own lot. That's spelled out in Torah. Right? No, I can't give this land. This is our inheritance. It runs in my family. I need to pass this down to my generations, and we need to. I understand, no king. But the Lord said, this is how it goes. And he's supposed to know that. The king, and he do know that. He knows that. He's just coveting. He's wicked. Read on.
God. Ooh, Salakia. And Ahab came into his house heavy and displeased because of the word which Naboth the Jezreelite had spoken to him.
Then he get mad because he told him that he just reminded him of how it's supposed to go and what the Lord says is right and what is wrong. Then he's mad at that. Read.
For he had said, I will not give thee the inheritance of my father.
He said, I'm not going to give you my father's inheritance. It's like modern day, if you got a special gift that your grandparents or your great grandparents gave you. For example, this is mine right here. All right, I have this wallet. Some of y'all know about it. All right, this is my wallet. So my first wallet that I ever had given to me, and this was given to me by my grandfather. Right? I've lost this wallet a couple times, and my heart sank, not because of what was in the wallet. Ain't much money in there, no money, just a couple of currency bills from other countries that I've been to. And, ain't nothing much on my cards that I have, but because it was sentimental, because my grandfather gave it to me, and now he's no longer here. And I hope that one day I can give this wallet to my son. And I hope that he can give this. And that's just how, now imagine an inheritance. And imagine somebody wanting to just take it. And then it's like, no, bro. And then imagine that individual that wanted to take it, like upset with you. Like, man, you're not going to sell me this is a fine leather. I'm going to give you $1,000 for this wallet. I could use $1,000 right now. And giving up this, I wouldn't do it. Right. I wouldn't do it. There's certain things that money can't buy. Right. Keep reading.
God. And he laid him down upon his bed and turned away his face and would not, Salaki, and would eat no bread.
And he was so upset. Listen to how sick he. See, people be thinking like fasting and righteousness is always what's going on when you're fasting. This is wicked. He fasting in wickedness. He's fasting because he can't have another man's possession. That's all. You see how you can do something that would be considered righteous in the wrong spirit? So what is you doing? Like petitioning God to like, please let me have this. But what he was doing was he was fasting for Satan to come in and intervene. That's what he was doing. You can fast to the wrong thing. And his prayers were answered. His fasting and his groaning in his spirit was answered by who else? By his wife Jezebel. Keep reading.
God. But Jezebel, his wife, came to him and said unto him, why is thy spirit so sad that thou eatest no bread?
Babe, what's wrong? What's going on? You not eating? All right. This is not like you. What's happening? Tell me about it. All right. That's how she came in, like a loving wife. Read on.
And he said unto her, because I spake unto Naboth the Jezreelite, and said unto him, give me thy vineyard for money, or else, if it please thee, I will give thee another vineyard for it. And he answered, I will not give thee my vineyard.
Right. And he wouldn't give me his vineyard. I don't like him. I told him I would give him more. And then he started complaining again. And she like, oh, okay. I'm sorry. Right? Don't worry, babe. I got you. Keep reading.
God. And Jezebel, his wife, said unto him, dost thou now govern the kingdom of Israel?
Then she started inflating his head. Right? What did you mean? You mean what? This is a supportive wife right here. Right? It's a fine line. Now you're going to understand how to properly represent Jezebel and the spirit that she has correctly. It's a fine line. No, she come across as a supportive wife. That's what y'all be saying. Lift your man up, exalt him, tell him he a king. Right? That's what she did. Aren't you the king? Keep reading.
God. Arise and eat bread, and let thine heart be merry. I will give thee the vineyard of Naboth the Jezreelite.
Don't worry about it, baby. I'm gonna take care of it myself. All right. You don't know how to get things done like I do, right? I know you have your customs and your law. What she's saying is, I know the Lord said this, and this is how it's set up, and this is how it goes. But you're the king. You should be able to do whatever you want to do in spite of whatever the Lord says. And what did that do? That played into his lust and his desire for what? What he wanted. That was Satan using her spirit seductively, right? The spirit of seduction coming upon his wife and saying, you forget about what the Lord said. Now you know how to represent Jezebel properly. A Jezebel is a woman that encourages her man, right, to forget about what God says to do. Don't walk in that way. We can do this over here. You'll be happier over here. I'll make you happier doing it this way. She's not like controlling in that way and domineering and loud and aggressive. No, she's not that kind of woman. But she's a woman that what? Will turn your heart away from the truth. That's a Jezebel. That's what God warned us about in Exodus and in Deuteronomy, the 7th chapter. This kind of woman, because these women will do that. It's not that they're mean and malicious and, nasty outright, right? She's not the kind of woman you would expect. But she said, I'm going to handle this for you. And then what did she do? Keep reading.
So she wrote letters to Ahab's name and
So
sealed them.
she acted as king, right? This is what Paul means when he's talking about usurping authority. This is what it looks like in a real live example to usurp authority, right? I'm going to write this in the name of the king. You just sit over here. I got you. You don't know what to do. You don't know what you're doing. I got you. Read on.
Gone. And sealed them with his seal.
And sealed them with his seal. Why do you think the Bible's saying it like that? Because the Bible is letting you know she's acting as king.
She gave herself power.
Exactly. Straight up. But she did it through what? Deceit and seduction. She didn't do it through force. She didn't say, give me this pen. No, she encouraged her husband in this wicked thing, right? She rubbed his back. She gave him a kiss. Might have gave him some that night and then went and said, I'll do this for you. Now, most brothers on the outside looking in like, man, that's a pretty good woman right there. She getting it done. But the thing is, it's not in the Lord's will. So we do need this kind of woman, but we need her in the context of righteousness. The righteous woman would say, I understand that you wanted that vineyard, baby, but he is right. If the Lord did say it has to come this way, we'll find another one. That's what it should have been. We can get another one. We can get something else. But when it's the opposite, now you have a Jezebel. So it's a fine line between a righteous woman and Jezebel. Learn that today. Keep reading.
Gone. And sent the letters unto the elders and to the nobles that were in his city, dwelling with Naboth. And she wrote in the letters, saying, proclaim a fast and set Naboth on high among the people.
Then she constructed this. You see this? She didn't just say, hey, go kill this man. She carefully constructed it. That's the seducing that is being talked about in Revelation 2. In 20, I think we read. That's the hypocrisy, the lies, the seducing, the deceit. She constructed a way to get this vineyard legally. All right. Go ahead.
Gone. And set 2 men, sons of Belial, before him to bear witness against him, saying, thou didst blaspheme God and the king. And then carry him out and stone him that he may die.
Good God. She said, but do you know how cold it is? Because what she's demonstrating is she knows how our laws work. That's what people skip that part. You don't understand. She didn't do it with sheer force. She didn't do it come in ignorant to our culture. She's keeping the high holy days and stuff like that too. Right? She's keeping the Passover, but she understands how the law works. You got to have 2 witnesses. You can't blaspheme the God of Israel, and you can't blaspheme the king. That's the law, right? You can't curse the rulers of your people, right? You can find that one for me. Exodus 21, right? Can't curse the rulers of your people or revile the gods, right? So she demonstrated, I have a full understanding. I know you need 2 to 3 witnesses, right? Go find 2 liars, and I know that you can't blaspheme the king or you can't blaspheme the rulers and you can't blaspheme God. That's an offense punishable by death. But so what she did was construct a way to get what her husband wants. So Exodus what?
22 and 28.
I'll read it. Exodus 22 and 28. Thou shalt not revile the gods, nor curse the ruler of thy people. All right. So what she did was she demonstrated wisdom of the law. But she used it in unrighteousness. And this is what a lot of people do. This is the deceptions. And we'll get to, what time is it? 1:44. We'll get to the Pharisees and the scribes. All right. If we got some time, you got to go at 2?
Yeah.
All right. So let's keep reading.
God. And the men of his city, even the elders and the nobles, who were the inhabitants in his city, did as Jezebel had sent unto them,
Uh-huh.
and as it was written in the letters which she had sent unto them.
Read.
They proclaimed a fast, and set Naboth on high among the people. And there came in 2 men, children of Belial, and sat before him, and the men of Belial witnessed against him, even against Naboth, in the presence of the people, saying, Naboth did blaspheme God and the king. And they carried him forth out of the city and stoned him with stones, that he died.
So what's also, you got to understand, what also is crazy is that she's able to find people to comply. Right? They're looking at the king's signet. Oh, the king wants us to, and nobody's saying, hey, this is against God's law. He's telling us to find false witnesses to kill this. That is the worst kind of sin possible. That's an extreme hatred of your brother in your heart and the willingness to kill him for his possession. This is why God said, don't covet somebody's possessions, because then you'd be willing to do anything to get that. You're going to do anything to get that, including kill that person. And this was done. Read.
God. Then they sent to Jezebel, saying, Naboth is stoned and is dead.
Mm-hmm.
And it came to pass, when Jezebel heard that Naboth was stoned and was dead, that Jezebel said to Ahab, Arise, take possession of the vineyard of Naboth, the Jezreelite, which he refused to give thee for money, for Naboth is not alive, but dead.
And you got it now, babe. Yay! Party tonight. That's wild, right? That's a seducing spirit. Oh, babe, we'll take care of this. It's like that. It's not like mean and aggressive and angry, and no, it's subtle. Because it looked like a lawful killing. You see what's so cold about that deception? It looked right. Man, you did that, bro. We got the 2 witnesses right here saying they heard you say that. Why would you blaspheme the king? Why would you blaspheme God? And this was a righteous man. He spoke in the name of the Lord. When he spoke to the king, the Lord forbid me. He wasn't disrespectful or nothing. It wasn't even like, man, get out of here. It was like, I understand, King, thank you for being generous, but the Lord said we can't do it like that. I'm not going to sell you my father's possession. And it's like, all right, now you got to die for that. That's wild. But this is how seducing spirits will deceive you with your own lust. Okay? So we're at 144. I have another couple sections. I can make this a part 3. All right. Well, what do brothers think? Brothers
Might as
think
well.
we could do a part 3. Or brothers think that we can kind of put a pin in this thing.
It's a lot of deceit in Israel.
What does the chat think? Where we at, chat? What does the chat think? Do we need part 3, or can we put a pin in it? I got a couple of scriptures, to close us out. All right. Aaron said he think we got it. He said he think the point has been made. All right. Who else got an opinion? I'm not gonna count it as vain. I'm asking for it. Okay. People can't get to their phone. Okay, part 3. We see Sister Brown say part 3. Well, I did want to get to a few more. I wanted to really get to the Pharisees and the scribes. I really did, because I feel like that is a good representation of what we have going on right now.
Right.
I did want to do that. So I think that is good to do a part 3, because we've got a couple of examples. There was a lot of edification that came forth. I believe a lot of points that were made. So I do want to put a pin in this lesson here, and we will get to part 3 next week, in which we emphasize the way of deceit, highlighting the Pharisees and the scribes. All right? Pharisees and the scribes. So I appreciate everybody who tapped into the live. I appreciate everybody who shared the spaces. I appreciate everybody who donates, to the Cash App, to the PayPal. Definitely greatly appreciate it. Helped me tremendously. All praises to the Most High. With that, we're going to give all praise, honor, and glory officially to Yahweh Bashem Yahushua, and we're going to go ahead and close out this lesson. Shalom.
Shalom.